LaTB, where MMA and UFC get silly. This is the LaTB podcast.
Welcome back to LaTB MMA podcast. As always, I'm your host, Emmanuel, here with the best person on the sticks that you could hope for. We got Cheney holding it down after a fun weekend where her heartthrob of a boyfriend came through, ripping the ribs right out of his opponent's chest. What a wonderful weekend worth of fights we had. How have you been?
Good. We didn't get to talk about
the
it.
last Saturday.
You didn't. You weren't at
Unfortunately, I was tied up. There. Fights of the round table, though, you can get some MMA Marks LaTB crossover after Fights Live breakdown of what really happened on the card. Luckily, I was able to watch most of the card, but yeah, work's a bitch.
Alpha joined us for a little while.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How did that swashbuckler do?
He came in first place.
God dang it. I didn't even look this week because I know I did bad. Dang it.
I know it's shit I didn't do bad overall. I think I got like 8 correct, which was better than most of the people I followed, but none of it showed up in the main card. It was a fun night of fights.
It was definitely. There was a lot of fun stuff in there, a lot of really interesting things, but that's a whole nother podcast.
What were your WAPs of it? What were your favorite parts?
Oh, dang. I mean, I know Chimaev stole the show against your boy Meatballs there, unfortunately. But my boy Colby Covington shut down T-Wood. But we all saw it coming as well. He was a decided favorite. The broken rib, saw the x-rays. Did you happen to get a hold of those?
No.
If you follow at Zolt tonight, you'll be able to see those T-Wood x-rays. It is a broken rib, fractured in half and actually displaced. So it's staggering on each other. It wasn't just a clean break. So yeah, the pain that he initially was screaming out, I discredited, kind of thinking, hey, he's whatever. But no, that I've had a fracture going down the side, not a clean break in half, and that was pretty gosh darn painful, let alone a whole break in half. Like, those are dangerous because they'll puncture a lung because they're free floating in there all of a sudden. But it didn't happen in the finishing sequence. It was before that at some point of the fight. So T-Wood officially saying he's not retiring, though, now that the week's gone on a little bit. How do you feel about any of that?
I mean, is there 170 years he can beat? When I think, I heard people, it might have been MMA Marks I might have been listening to yesterday, and they were talking, or it might have been people in their chat room talking about, like, T-Woods could probably beat Nate Diaz. How does T-Woods fare against, like, Masvidal? How does T-Woods fare against, like, there was a couple,
Loss against Masvidal beats Diaz.
It's like there's a couple other intriguing matchups that you wonder how, like Cowboy. How does Cowboy fare against Woods?
That's a fucking great fight. That's actually a better fight than what we saw Nico Price, Donald Cerrone give us in that draw. But everyone saw that coming after that eye poke issue.
Or Nico
there.
Price T Woods. Doesn't that seem intriguing? Like something you never thought you'd see. But now it's like maybe T Woods is, if he still wants to fight, maybe he hasn't taken tons of head trauma like we've seen other guys that have his fighting style take. Maybe he's a perfect gatekeeper for, he's well-rounded enough that we haven't seen T Woods, I think for 15 rounds we've seen him lose by takedowns. But T Woods used to be the guy taking people down.
True.
You know what my WAP was of the night after sitting on it long? I am so excited to be wrong about who's everybody's favorite hottie? Mackenzie Dern. I love what I saw from her. And I saw a lot of people hating on Ronda Marcos. Like, we knew this would be an easy walkthrough. And maybe I only think you'd know it I felt like Ronda Marcos's answer to Mackenzie Dern's were more than anybody else has ever had for Mackenzie Dern. And there was a good minute that I thought, oh, Mackenzie Dern might be in trouble here. If Ronda Marcos figures out, because Ronda Marcos had her other arm pinned, I'm like, if she can survive this, Mackenzie Dern's is going to wear out and Ronda Marcos could take over. And then Mackenzie Dern did some next level shit where even when she was grabbing that arm bar, she couldn't pull it off, and then kind of adjusted a little bit because the fence was behind her, so she couldn't lean all the way back, and then adjusted to like the pivot point of the arm, bending it backwards. I love what I saw from Mackenzie Dern. She did some separation shit with her heel. She put her heel down and got the other girl's arm. I just loved it.
And you should expect that from a world-class black belt world jiu-jitsu champion. What I just absolutely hated was my bet going straight in the toilet when Ronda Marcos was like, she slipped. Oh, let me go jump on top of her. When everybody is like, even in the interviewers the whole week before, like, if she goes to the ground, are you going to stay there? She's like, no, the fight can be won in a lot of places. So it's like, all right, she wants to get it to the ground. Marcos,
it was like her instincts. Her instincts took over and fucked her. She knew it too. She immediately knew it. Like, I knew not to chase this bitch to the ground. What in the
Absolutely.
hell?
And that's where we need to fall back on the archetypes that we like to set for people here on LaTB, where it's like, you're a wrestler grappler. This is what you do. So when someone offers up a advantageous position, you're just going to be like, okay. And it's actually counter training that needs to happen in a lot of these wrestlers to be like, no, back off. Back off. You can beat them striking. It's MMA. It's a different. So Ronda Marcos, bonehead decision. First 2 losses in a row in a while for her. I think Dern's hype has been credited for an amount of time because she does have that jiu-jitsu level. And I really liked what I think it was Petrozelli talking about how ladies specifically in MMA should really look for the submission other than the knockout potential, just because it's not there for women as much, but the submission is always there because it's mechanical. It's not one punch power that only, we see some of these GDR / Amanda Nunes type people have. A lot of other ladies, can use the fundamentals to finish the fight regardless of body type. As I was saying with body type, with Alpar getting absolutely destroyed in there against Jessie Jess, that horrible ref. I don't know how the UFC allows him to come back. They've banned other refs. I don't know how Tyone keeps a job in there. 2 issues in the last month and bad. I mean, that poor girl's nose. Woo! That poor girl's nose. Tough as nails. I thought she would have called it. A lot of other fighters, males, would have called that fight off. Alpar was like, no, I'm good to go. Let's start again. And Jessie Jess was like, damn.
Jessie Jess even looked like she walked up to her and was like, are you okay? She started out with the first punch like she felt bad. And then she was like, all right, let's do this. Knee again.
It's a paycheck and you're trying to get paid out there. So you can't be mad at Jessie Jess for that. Again, it's the ref's fault. The ref is there to prevent people from getting hurt. So all Tyone's fault. I hope we don't ever see him back in there again, honestly.
That was definitely the dap of the night. That was the dap of the night.
Dry.
Mackenzie Dern, body similar to Jessie Jess. And I almost just want to be like, that's what the lady's body almost has to look like when we know they're doing work in there.
I would disagree 100%. I'm sorry. We don't do that much here often, but Jessie Jess looks like she's been a fitness freak for the last 2 years where you're right with Dern. She's finally starting to look more muscular in there, but Jessie Jess has definition on the back of her quads and her thighs that it's like, oh, she's putting in time that it doesn't matter male or female. Those people are putting in crazy work where Dern does look like she's in the best shape she's been in her UFC career, but she's got room to grow. Where Jess might be peaking at her prime.
Well, how long has Jessie Jess been in the UFC compared to Dern? I feel like Jessie Jess has been in here
like a year and a half
forever. So I'm like, and Mackenzie Dern, I feel like I'm seeing growth. Jessie Jess, I'm like, really? Yes, I was watching this like, well, you beat somebody who shouldn't even be in the UFC, so glad that finally happened.
Well, you don't like the girls? You don't like thick girls? I told you she was thick.
I
I
know.
told you.
We were watching this fight, actually, me and my wife, and I said, that's the number one reason I'm not in the UFC. And she's like, why? Because you get beat up like that if, you know? And I was like, no, because do you see that way the girl looks on the bottom, that the camera angle with those shorts riding up and her fat squeezing out of the, that is how I feel like I would look like. And I would be more concerned with that in the camera in that moment than about Jess's elbows landing on me. And that wouldn't be great.
Right. You take the damage just to save face.
You would see my hands creep down and they'd be like, oh, her arm's free from the arm bar. And it would just be to grab my shorts and pull them down my thigh.
And here, I'm a better like, oh, thread the needle. And you're just pulling your shorts down.
You're fixing, like when I'm in the corner, you're just helping me fix my shirt. Pulling it off my love handles. Thank you, coach.
So here, we're Federation commenting, thinking Jesse Jess is top 5, top 10 cutest MMA fighters in there. Definitely up there. There's a lot more than you would think of. I mean, follow that Bay Malecki all of a sudden. I don't know what's happening. The late night studying has been extra heavy, especially in this main event we're going to have in a pay-per-view. But that's nor here nor there. Quickly, before we get into that pay-per-view, that 11 card bout, I want to know what's going on in your outside, some things you've been doing on the side in this quarantine lifestyle we've been in now for a little while.
I have been doing some chatting about conspiracy stuff and tarot. I was on Rogue Ways, a podcast.
Say it with your goddamn chest. Say it with your chest.
Rogue Ways. I have to say it ways because I thought it was waves for a little bit.
And you're nice.
Yeah, I've actually been without the internet for 5 days. I just got it fixed today, and I needed a break.
How's it being off the grid? How's it being off the grid?
I needed a break from all the Black Mirrors. It was kind of nice. I checked my Insta a few times. I watched... What did I even watch on YouTube? I might have watched like a Two Bears, One Cave on YouTube, but other than that, I haven't done anything but read some articles, go down a few rabbit holes that we don't have to get into on LaTB. What have you been up to?
Well, we don't want to get kicked off Twitch. We don't want to get censored on Twitch all of a sudden, but definitely worth a while. If you're following at Weekneck Baby on Twitter, you're going to get into it very deep on Instagram as well. But a fun thing that I was actually
talk about anything on Weekneck Baby Instagram. I don't even know if there is a Weekneck Baby Instagram.
Well, there you have it. One fun thing that I figured, a little life hack that actually might come in helpful for me. Her candy ass was on Sam Tripoli show. Hell yeah. Cheney over here being on the Sam Trip show Patreon. If you're a tinfoil hat fan,
I just looked and that show hasn't come out. Yeah, I just looked and that show has not been released yet. And I do get the audio version, so it just hasn't been released yet, but I have done
late breaking here on LaTB. It's been a little while since we've had some of that, but just so you know, officially that's coming down the way.
I think I'm on Sam again on the 28th.
There it is.
I think on the 28th on Monday.
Set your Patreons, because, you know.
I don't know if it'll be the Patreon or the real tinfoil hat. I don't think I've graduated to the real tinfoil hat yet.
As I said, loyal to the foil here, so you're not going to surprise me with much, but it's going to definitely be a great listen if I know anything here.
What have you been up to?
A fun life hack that I learned as of late was, and it's rightfully so, my quarantine bot has gotten a little out of control. I've been going hard in this quarantine lifestyle for a while. I've been on rations for a bit, and it ain't looking good. So luckily, the old lady's gotten me doing some workouts. We're doing a little bit of, not necessarily jazzercise, but some hardcore body. I'm trying to hit the legs hard. I'm trying to hit the core body workout because I feel like if you hit those core body workouts, they help the body more than just biceps, just legs. You just hit that muscle burning middle in there. But at the end of it, all of a sudden I was like, hey, now that we did a 45-minute freaking sweat session, get on the ground. And she's like, what? And I was like, on the ground. And I laid on top of her. And I was like, all right, get out from under me. I'm just going to be a saggy weight on you. And had her get out, and then actually showed her how in some of my jiu-jitsu and wrestling days, just like, hey, this is how you get out from underneath someone. Right now, it's just the no resistance, no weight. Eventually, she's going to get into that resistance. She's going to be like, okay, clearing this. Right now, she's just learning the 3 points of like, oh, when I'm underneath someone, this is what I have to do. But I think in life, that's something that a lot of people overlook. And not until you need it, when if you find out you need to get out from under someone and you can't, that's a really scary situation. So, hey, life hack, lay on top of your loved ones, make them get out from under you.
I was waiting to hear what the hack was going to be. Like, and I thought there was going to be some trick. So when I laid on top of her, she realized that if she just like did this, it was so like, I thought there was going to be a hack.
No, I had to, no. Jiu-jitsu,
the
shrimp
life
out,
hack is
frame
if
up,
she's under somebody, she knows how to get out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's after her cardio
And after a few times,
session.
I'm going to do it naked to her.
hey, let's not talk about the long game. Let's worry about the little chess
You can
moves.
tell them you're worried about them keeping themselves protected, but really.
No, eventually, we have to stimulate.
You're going to get yourself pulled off Twitch.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, World Whining Federation knows what I'm talking about in here for sure. Again, props on that heavy duty
He's
win
laying on top
over
of his
the
girl
Saturday.
right now.
If he's on that devil's lettuce, you know he's taking the best advice here from LaTB. So that's how you inch your way in. And hey, maybe she just learns some ground basics, and eventually it's like, if I can sneak in some rubber guard on this bitch, she'll be deadly and not even know it.
This is the other thing too.
Karen,
A lot of girls
Karen, talk to
are
me about my dog Karen. I'm about to fucking omoplata your ass.
a lot of girls are a lot more flexible by nature than dudes, so you might be impressed with parts she's naturally flexible in that you're like, "Oh, look at you." Look at you, can totally rubber guard me.
And World Winning Federation talking about, and this is something that even I was talking about with the old lady a bit, the old dick twist, the old attacking the groin works to an extent. It works to a certain level. There's guys that can walk through those. We've seen multiple fighters just be like, all right, yeah, it sucks, but let's say that dick kick doesn't work. You're still going to need fundamentals to get that person off of you. And that's exactly why I was like, if you can attack the groin, babe, go for it. But if not, if you just need a frame on the shoulders, use the 3 points of leverage to get up, you at least can be on a neutral ground instead of somebody on top of you, which you're losing that 80% of the time. Unless you know what you're doing, that's when that rubber guard comes in. So, World Winnings Federation's Karen over here better not be attacking anyone, because my girl's ready. I'm just telling you. He's got a Karen at home, and apparently she's worried about the shopping carts at the local shopping center. So keep to yourself, lady. Just telling
If you get her even close to like being, being able to not handle herself with you, but just comfortable getting your weight off and throwing her own weight around and knowing points of leverage, that makes her dangerous toward another woman. If somebody were to be like, hey, you're walking down the wrong way in the grocery store.
Not even. And it's not even. That's the beauty of what we're saying with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Mackenzie Dern, Gabby Garcia. 100-pound weight difference. Mackenzie Dern wins that match because technique, tenacity, applied science, all is attached. And if you get your naked choke, it doesn't matter what you got in between your legs. Those carotid arteries only put so much blood going up to your brain, and you can be deadly. So it's empowering people. It's just getting them confident enough to be able to apply them, because everybody can do a rear naked choke. Everybody can do a frame off to stand up or a double leg takedown.
I'll be real honest. Even myself, and I have a younger brother, and we were scrappy as kids. Knowing about rear naked chokes, in my whole life I've known about them. But knowing to now put my hooks in, that would have changed my game at 15.
$1,000,000%.
And it seems so
Million
simple. It seems
percent.
like you're obvious, but you're not thinking about your whole body like that.
Right.
And like that would have, even just one hook, that would have changed my life if I could have put my brother to sleep a few times and just walked away from that situation.
Well, absolutely in
Not saying
there.
that to do that. We do not condone that, kids. It was different when we were growing up. We were tougher when we were growing up. We all were putting rear naked chokes like on a regular
Hey,
basis.
it works both ways. And if bullies need to understand, maybe they shouldn't be bullies sometimes. It ain't the worst thing in the world. Now, don't be a dick out there and use what you've learned in the negative. But
Hey, you know what? We've been seeing a lot of like news feed. You know, we're in high tensions in America at least, but there was like some weird attack at a restaurant, and we saw some random hero dude walk up and totally put both his hooks in, rear naked choke the dude, roll him off himself, and the cops and security came, and
nobody
everything was
was
fine.
hurt.
No one was hurt. It was
Everybody was
perfect.
right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's many, many other holds than just that rear naked choke to completely hold somebody in just a neutral position until officers get there. And that's the fun of martial arts. That's the beauty of it. Not only do you get a workout, not only do you strengthen your core, but you also learn how to manipulate your weight on top of someone else's. And it's one of those things, if you don't use it, you lose it. And it's not bad. You're not going to get bad stuff from doing this. Loved one, even if it's your kids, it doesn't have to be a full grown up. Just the mechanics, because the kids will still learn from that. They'll learn from those mechanics and be like, "Oh, I learned with my dad that your arm only moves this way." Yes, because every human's body only moves that way. So just understanding those positions really beneficial. We really, you know what we're here for, though. We got a pay-per-view on board. We got 11 cards. We got probably the most erotic main event we could ever hope for. Israel Adesanya versus Paulo Costa at 185 pounds for the belt. The late night studying has been sweaty. I've had to take those midnight showers one too many times. And this is the best of all the reasons. If you got nothing else, we got to start from the bottom to the top. What do you have for me?
I'm totally ready to start from the bottom to the top.
With a returning fighter, we have Kadis Igrabimov coming in against Delino Marquez, the debut fighter. Delino in here is 9-2, coming off a 2-fight winning streak out of Gladiator, losing in the LFA to a decision, also being knocked out prior before. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu somewhat standout. He trains out of Brazil at 34 years old, out of Vila de Luta. You'll ask who else is out of there? Damian Maia. And who's the second guy? There's one other UFC person out of that gym, but it's really just Damian Maia at 170 pounds. So the 205er not getting in tons of crazy reps, but he really does like to get it to the ground. He's got a lot of wins by submission, a couple TKOs, but it's against low level taxi cab type driving opponents. I really feel like it was maybe Damian Maia in his contract that he'd get a couple other buddies in here. Maybe it's because the visa issues or something, but we are going to be actually over on Fight Island in Abu Dhabi, which just does change some formats. I got so ahead of myself and didn't think of some of the intangibles, but we are going to have an extra 10 feet in the cage, 35-foot cage to the 25-foot cage, which amounts to X amount of cubic feet. So it does adjust for some of these wrestlers or fighters. They do have a little more room to move, or their opponents to move here. But Marquez likes to shoot for a high single. Has a traditionally jiu-jitsu takedown, which is essentially a garbage takedown. But once he gets to the ground, he really does work, moves the position well, advances well. And against Cadiz here, Cadiz is one of these guys who's 8-3, only lost in the UFC, lost them all to Jung via submission, Ed Herman versus decision, and as of late, Dolaziz via TKO 2 months ago. But it's the constant issue we see with Cadiz. He'll blow Joe Schmo out of there. Taxi cab drivers, he'll get him out with a knockout. But in the UFC, if someone extends him past the first round, he has zero gas. The thing is that if he wins, it's going to be in the first round. He'll throw a ton of uppercuts, a ton of kicks. He just does not have even that second round cardio. That's a scary thing with him. On the ground, we've also seen Cadiz out grappled, and that's where guys have started to tend to really wear on him. They'll push him up against the cage. A lot of what Marquez likes to do is just kind of smother you on the cage and finally get you down with a sloppy takedown. And Ibrahimov is susceptible to that. Really, absolutely trashy fight to bet all over. You can't be confident on either side. Cadiz, UFC experience, but he hasn't won any of that. So therefore, he's not UFC caliber, but neither is Marquez in my point of view. I don't like what I saw from either of these guys. I got to go with Ibrahimov TKO round number 1 just because I feel like because I like that and it's flashier, but in all actuality, Marquez is just as live for the submission at any point in time in this fight, especially the further it gets out of the first round. So live betting after the first round, go all Marquez. I'm going to go Ibrahimov TKO round number 1, but I'm not confident and I'm not going to be playing it hard on my DK. What do you think you're going to be doing in this first fight of the night that we tell you guys to stay away from?
Lappy, always stay away from this. This is the reason we made the Lappy stay away. It's these kind of garbage fights where it's like 2 fighters, short notice. One dude, it's like they're doing something for him because he's from Russia and he's this young kid they were hoping something would come out of that hasn't. And some old guy at the tenure of his career fighting his first fight in the UFC. And one of his fights is literally somebody with they've had 16 fights and 16 losses. That's insane that somebody has a record of 0-16. I've never even heard of that before. Like at round 0 and 8, somebody should have been like, this isn't your path.
Persistence.
Jeez,
wow.
Like you're just the fall guy. Like you're the Globetrotters of MMA.
But you're getting paid $50 win or lose, probably lose, and you're going to get $200 and you're just like, what? You want me to fight Mickey Rourke? Okay.
Yeah, just so I'm going to go with Marquez submission round 3 because I haven't seen Cadiz do ever anything good in the UFC, so I can't imagine I'm going to all of a sudden see him get a knockout against a random dude off the street. Like, I feel like if you were a random dude off the street, he might have more skills than you, but if you survived the first round and knew how to submit someone, you'd be able to submit this guy. So I'm going to stay away from this fight, but I'm going with Marquez submission round 3.
On DraftKings, you're going to end up paying for the minus 150 favorite, Ibrahimov, 8,700 against Marquez is 7,500. Do you see yourself playing this on DraftKings anywhere? It's only 11 bouts, so it is going to be shorter. Last week on DraftKings, I literally won my exact to the cent money back. Even split down the middle.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so definitely was... you got to get these winners that are finishing nonstop, these 5 rounders that we're going to finally get a couple of here moving on. But yeah, I agree. Definitely be very cautious with this one if you're playing. I think Marquez is actually the play, or Marquez is actually the play out of both of these fighters for 7-5. Ibrahimov has let us down more times than not, so you can't be confident in that. So even though I have him TKO round 1, I think the play is absolutely Marquez there. Then we move on to 265 pounds, where we have Jeff Hughes coming in against Juan Espinito El Guapo. Don't tell Boss Rutan in there about that nickname. The 9-1 fighters coming in.
Did you see Joe Biden on that video where he came out to Espacito when he played it on his phone?
I did not.
Oh my god, dude!
I did not.
Or whatever, Despacito, whatever that fucking song's called.
Yeah.
So he comes out and he's supposed to speak to like Latin Democrats, something, Spanish Democrats, Mexican Democrats, Cuban Democrats. I don't know what the Democrats were and why he thought it was a good idea, but he was late coming out into the stage. They're like, "Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Biden," and he doesn't come out. And then he finally comes out like a slow old man. And then he holds his phone up to the microphone and plays Despacito. You have to look it up because you'll just be so uncomfortable. And he thinks it's cool. Like, he's like, see, kids, I'm hip to...
I'm in.
Yeah, look it. I know all about Latin culture.
He should have came out to that WAP. That's what he should have come out to.
Well, that's his girl who interviews him and gives him those hardball questions.
So here, Juan El Guapo is coming in with a 9-1 record, 8-fight winning streak, 9-fight winning streak. Last beating Justin Frazier via submission arm triangle a year, 9 months ago. Coming off the Ultimate Fighter, beating Maurice Green, winning the show, I believe, beating Ben Sassoli in there as well. Coming out with one of these Spanish wrestling games. We've seen it in one other fighter at 145, 155. Can't think of his name right now, but either way, the Spanish wrestlers coming in with not the biggest credentials because España isn't known for that, but definitely athletes coming out of Spain. And Espinito, for a heavyweight, does exactly what Jeff Hughes does, I feel like, to a better acumen. His striking isn't that good, but it's really just a means to end to get to that clinch, to get to that single leg where he likes to drag you down. And once he's in that half control top ground and pound, Espinito does his best work and he sets up a lot of arm triangles from either side Americanos because of that ground and pound. Jeff Hughes is an American wrestler being 10-3, coming off of a 3-fight losing streak officially. The Todd Duffy fight that he was winning got turned over for an eye gouge accidental, losing to Pessoa in a decision. Jeff Hughes is the type of guy who comes in and really just kind of pushes you up against the cage, grinds you out with dirty boxing, and can fight off a takedown. But off of the ground, he's not particularly anything dangerous off of his back. And striking, he's not anything dangerous. He's just kind of a decision grinder. And Espinito, I feel like, is a better grinder, a better wrestler. Not as good as striking, but neither of these guys are good strikers. Only do they have power because they're heavyweights, but you can't put much into that. I got Espinito winning a decision. I just think that he has more takedowns. He's much more of a uh, uh, forward pressure fighter out of both of these guys. Hughes will sit back a little bit more, but I've never been high on Hughes. I got a decision. I think this is a little sloppy, if anything. If any one of these guys finishes, I think Espinito's the only side of that that's likely to finish. Again, I'm going with a decision in these heavyweights. This is going to be a grinding type of affair. Who do you think you're sticking with in this dirty heavyweight fight?
I'm going to pick Espino, submission round 2. I've just never really liked Hughes. Everyone he's fought, I haven't really liked. I'm not going to play this anywhere. I more so agree with what you're saying, that this goes to decision and it is a boring, slow fight. Neither guy works up any points. The only thing one will get 20 more points than the other because of the finish or because of the decision. But I'm going to stay away from this. I totally agree, though. I'm picking more so for my hate for Jeff Hughes. I'm picking Espino submission round 2, but I'm going to stay away from it.
Definitely, I agree with that. I feel like for 9,100 on Espino being the favorite here, Hughes 7,100, it's going to be rough for me to be putting Espino in too many spots. Minus 295 is he a favorite as well as a betting odds. So a lot of people see what we're seeing here. On DraftKings, on average, with the one fight Espino's had, so we can't really go into that because Hughes has had a couple more fights, but the average is just so high for Espino. You can't expect it to be over 100 points. For 9-1, again, ultra limited, if not 5%, but it's only on Espino. I have no confidence in Hughes winning, and if he wins, it's going to be like a 30-point win for Hughes. It'll be absolutely the slowest of events ever, where the submission might come for Espino. Then we move on to a much more interesting matchup at 205 pounds. At light heavyweight, we got William Knight debuting in here against Alexa Kamur. Alexa Kamur being 6-0, winning his debut against Justin Ledette, the flat earth, flat top, mullet wearing, burnt ramen son of a gun. Justin Ledette in here has been a dog I've been trying to be on for a long time. He's finally been banished to the BKFC regional scene and finally maybe picking up some boxing wins. But Ledette really showed up to be a whole lot of nothing in here. And the fact that Kamur moved up from 85 and stayed at 205, maybe this young man put on a little bit more muscle, but he didn't look like the biggest guy against Ledette in there, his only UFC caliber competition. And it was one of the few guys he wasn't able to finish because once Kamura got to the UFC, he realized that, hey, the nacho salesman out front wasn't just going to go down with a punch and a spinning heel kick. Ledet was able to evade that and turn it into a decision, a grimy one at that. But Kimura throws a lot of really big flash moves. He has actually a really good 1-2. I believe he's a southpaw. I might be wrong on that. I believe he switches his stance well, has a good 1-2 down the middle, and he'll throw a spinning heel too often, where a good wrestler will actually counter that and take your back. Ledet was not that, and neither has none of his previous opponents. But there's openings for this young man. He's a little bit wild, but he does have power. He does throw flying knees. He did have a Contender Series knockout to get into the UFC, and that was a beautifully timed jumping knee there. But there's openings in his lag time that I'm not all the way hyped on this young man, especially when it was only a decision against Ledet. Now that I'm looking at my post Ledet study, I'm like, okay, you usually got to get him out of there. If you can't, I don't know what I really think of you. And William Knight in here coming in with a ton of credentials. The 32-year-old being 8-1, only losing via TKO to Tefon 9 months ago. Prior to that, after that, beating Edwards, and on the Contender Series, Brundage. Knight is a 5'10", which is really 5'8". He is much shorter, has really got a lot better physical conditioning than he was in his earlier scene. Ton of power, absolutely unreal amount of power on Knight. He was a high school wrestler since his sophomore year, was a nationally ranked wrestler, but ended up getting hurt. And the guy he beat won nationals that year, apparently. But William Knight, actually, just even though he likes to strike a lot and shows a lot of striking acumen, he's actually more of a wrestler. He uses a really high crotch single leg, a lot like Daniel Cormier, and he'll do a lot of that Daniel Cormier up and toss over the shoulder. And then when he's on his ground and pound, William Knight is the type of guy that'll land hammer fists and elbows from that single leg position that hurt his opponents. It doesn't matter the opponent on Knight. He starts landing ground and pound, they all get hurt. And he has actually at level competition where Kimura had really low level opponents in there, really garbage opponents. Knight has actually had some credible wins in there. This is a really fun matchup. There's a lot of intangibles. Both of these guys have a ton of power. Even though Knight they both gas. I feel like Kimura can keep a steadier gas tank, but Knight, it still holds power late at 205. I just feel like Knight is an 85er, even a fucking 70-pounder, but he's thick. You'll see him. Unbelievable amount of muscle on this younger man. But I got a Knight TKO round number 2. I had it round number 1. I just think the power translates over later, and it's in the intangible positions, as I'm saying. Kimura's going to come in for a takedown after he hits a couple big shots or after defending some grappling, and it's going to be in that elbow, hammer fist, clinch position that he does the most. I got an underdog here, plus 150 Knight. This is a super grimy fight. I think you can have exposure to both sides and be okay on this because Kimura has high volatility here and a better gas tank for sure. I went too long on that one. Who do you think you're picking?
Kimura decision.
Kimura 8,600 on DraftKings against Knight 7,600. On DraftKings, like I said, I'm going to go 10 and 10%, especially on Knight being 7-6. He has that knockout potential in all 3 rounds, not only the first, especially the first 2. Third round, probably not going to happen for Knight, but he'll be able to pay that 7-6 off a lot more. Kimura's kind of bound to that first round knockout to pay it off. So I am actually going 20% Knight, 10% Kimura, but I do think you have to have exposure to this one. This is a banger. This is one that can go down like, do you guys remember that 2000 19 fight that was fucking crazy. Or 2020? Are we in 20 now? What the fuck is going on?
2019.
Where are we?
You're the only person that
Jesus.
traveled backward. You're like, you know what I want to do?
I was watching
2020 all
tape.
over and over again.
I'm watching fight tape from a few years ago, and I'm just like, God,
I actually think it's going to
2020
be
is going to be a
boring.
shit
I think the
year.
first round's going to be a banger, and
Oh,
then it's going to be slow, and both the guys are going to be gassed. And so I think it's going to be, I'm going to stay away from it. But I do think the gas tank of Kimura just outlasts so that those final rounds he can put a stable on it. I agree with you, though, about the power of Knight coming in hot at the beginning. I'm going to stay away from this. I'm going to have no exposure. But I want to see what both these guys are doing inside the UFC legitly. Like, I still feel too tentative. Ledet was never UFC dude for me.
absolutely right. And that's where I'm really most excited with that, as you're saying as well. It's when they branch out because they have much more interesting matchups moving on as well against stylistically. Like that 205, just both of them. Both of them
Some of
look
these
like they're going
fights
to
in the
be fried.
undercard are fucking garbage.
I, I, I don't know if I believe that. The one we just talked about, for me, I don't know if people aren't doing their tape study, but it just seems like fireworks. And this one coming up at 145 pounds, Shane Young against short notice replacement Ludwig Klein is a fucking banger. Klein coming in short notice for Landwehr, which I'm a big fan of here. Shane Young had a much more different matchup with Landwehr. You know, the trained Landwehr likes to come forward, use a lot of pressure in here. Shane Young coming in with that city kickboxing credentials, 13-4, coming off a 2-fight winning streak, winning in the UFC now twice, losing only to Alexander Volkanovski in his debut 2 years ago, 10 months. So it doesn't look so bad all of a sudden, his own teammate there. But Rolando DB and his next opponent, he knocked out. And then Austin Arnett, who a lot of people were on in a decision a year 7 ago. Young shows well-rounded everywhere. Good grappling, actually showed really good hips on the ground, switching, showing he has 3-round cardio, and showing that city kickboxing feint-oriented, good game plan. Definitely has his striking acumen in there, and if he can't, then he'll go to the ground. And a well-rounded young MMA fighter. Really like what I'm seeing from Shane Young in here, but here in this short notice replacement, I was expecting a step down, and Klein is an intangible. Told you guys this about Pereira, about other young up and coming prospects as well, where it's like, hey, they really got some fucking fun aspects of their game. And Klein comes in as a southpaw, heavy southpaw. I don't want to say Conor McGregor-esque, but he has that death touch. Not only is he awkward for most of his opponents, but when he hits them, he really hurts them, and he throws one Kevin Gastelum, KG type of 1-2. You know how we feel here about KG's 1-2. Klein has that in the southpaw, the exact same. He pumps out that jab as hard as he pumps that power hand, and both of them will hurt you, and he'll double and triple up on those hard, but then it comes in with his takedown defense. There was a couple opponents that weren't UFC caliber, but they immediately disliked the striking and came in with actually really good wrestling. And Klein, not only if he got taken down, he was able to fight it back up to keep it striking, but he was able to fight off all the rest of those takedowns, even late into a fight, going into the 4th and 5th rounds on the promotional local scene at the 16-2 fighter, fighting out of, where was I graced to watch? Freaking, I think it was, Octagon with a K. I think it was spelled with a promotion. But either way, there was some opponents in there were not just trash cans. He had some winning of competition guys that eventually might make it in the UFC as well. So I think this is a much closer fight than people have it. Shane Young is a minus 200 favorite in here, but I think Klein can make it really dirty. I think he brings in some really unique striking here. Young seems like he is built to solve the puzzle, regardless of the puzzle a little bit more, especially with beating not Mustafayev. That's later off in the night. But I got Young decision here. But Klein, someone to watch out for. I think Klein is someone to, if you're looking for an underdog as well, Klein is right there for me. really close to picking this young man. Really fun fight moving here. What do you think you're taking out of these two?
Klein's the heavy favorite on Tapology right now, and most people, 62% have
Oh,
him to
interesting.
win, and most people have him to win by knockout. I think people are
He
looking
hits hard.
past. I think people are looking past Shane Young to go with Volkanovski like he did against his own teammate and training with those guys. He's doing everything right to me. He's taking the right steps. Yeah, Klein could be the short notice guy, but it's short notice for both these dudes at this point. It's not like Young's a really huge name and then this other dude's coming in. It's like they're both at the same level to me. Even though Young's had a UFC fight, I don't remember him at all. So,
Well, Young had a training camp coming into this is why the intangible would be there. Like he was actually getting ready for a fight regardless of the opponent. Like he's trying to peak his body where Klein comes in, essentially off of the couch. We don't know if he's getting ready for
I
a
think
training
all
camp.
the guys are getting ready right now. I just
You're
I
right.
even think a lot of the short notice, we're even hearing it in the camp. Like this guy only found about it a week ago, but he's always ready, or he was in training camp for the last month. Like we keep hearing about these guys that they're just trying to stay ready because they know this opportunity with the UFC and COVID. They could get a call on a moment's notice and be fighting on a main card against somebody who was their hero, just last week. So I'm going to pick Young just by experience and that I've seen him inside the UFC. I think both these guys, just by their size, could probably throw some points that your money might be safe either way. And I don't think either of them that I see being really glass jawed. So give me Young by decision. Yeah, but I can see why everyone likes Klein.
Definitely gonna be a fun one. There's no official DraftKings lines out so far. The current betting odds on Young versus Klein is gonna be minus 115, minus 105, near coin flip for somebody who's proven in Young against at caliber actual UFC competition in there. So a lot of bettors seeing Klein's actual potential in here as well. It's gonna be a fun one. Again, we're both citing decision Klein here. So
No, I have Young.
on DraftKings, I have Young as well.
Yeah.
Did I say Klein?
Yeah.
I have Young decision,
Okay, I thought
but
so, but I didn't. Then I'm like, maybe you have. I didn't know.
no,
So okay.
but Klein's a real deal. That's the thing is I gotta have out of the two fighters. I think Young's more of a decision type of fight, where Klein is more of the knockout guy. So DraftKings wise, I think the play's gonna be on Klein, even if he's an underdog, which it doesn't look like it's gonna be too much. He'll probably be in that 8-8 range, 8-2, 8-1 range. Um, but definitely really interesting matchup we got going on there on short notice. Then we get on into the 170 pounders where we have returning Jake Matthews coming in against the Dream, the Nightmare, call him whatever you want. Diego Sanchez is coming in hot at 170 pounds. 30-12, coming off of a win to Michelle Pereira via disqualification in a 3-round beating 7 months ago. Diego Sanchez is doing yoga in the airports. He's stretching it out with his freaking little creepy guru, little son of a bitch, whatever his name is. Fuck that guy. Um, then beating Mickey Gall, beating Craig White, losing to Brown and Chiesa in a decision. What Diego Sanchez has proved as of late is that even though he's punchy, he can still get into a grappling contest and not be finished. He can still avoid enough of the strikes that he's not going to get completely ragdolled in there. Even in that Pereira fight, Pereira is probably a lot of people think of him as the biggest puncher, just that potential. And Sanchez, even though he got 10-8'd in those rounds, he didn't go unconscious. So he'll stick around. And for that
Because
matter,
he's been
against
walking
Jake
around
Matthews,
unconscious for like the last 4 years.
truth, truth, but he can survive. He can survive, and that's just kind of the shield he's going out on, is just that he's not getting blown out of there. There's not. I guess I would say there's not many fights I think he couldn't win, but he beat Mickey Gall, and I thought Mickey Gall would fucking run right through him.
Mickey
So
Gall's
that's
garbage.
got to say something.
I have always thought
Absolutely
Mickey Gall was
garbage.
garbage, though, and I actually thought at one point in his life Diego Sanchez was UFC caliber. I've never thought that about Mickey Gall, so that's what I
Right.
expected to happen.
You're so right there. And
It would
here
have been
coming in
awesome
against
if you
Jake Matthews.
barfed.
So definitely looking at some of the elite footage for Diego Sanchez. Right on par for that, because he's just someone who just takes a beating in there. Just again tries to survive instead of win the fight, even though yes, he's swinging in there. He's just never been the biggest power puncher, especially at this point of his career. But now he can kind of take the punishment, but not really. But against here Matthews, who has a few submissions in there, even some TKOs, coming off of a 2-fight winning streak, beating Emil Meek, last beating Akman, losing to Rocco Martin in a submission, beating Azari. Matthews is a front runner. He's a guy who's got tons of power, humongous, filled it like it is crazy that he makes 170. I guarantee you he
Let's say
walks
our
around
favorite thing
easily at
about Jake
200.
Matthews. Let's just say it.
Them thighs, them
What's the,
steroid hips.
yeah, yes. That's what I was going to say. Tell everybody, because I think it's like, I think it matters, because since you said this, he pretty much hasn't lost. I mean, yeah, he does have one loss on his
He's
record, but.
Yes, and it's because he's a front runner. Because once somebody starts to push on him, once somebody challenges him in the wrestling and is able to overpower him, he just kind of gives up in there. But Diego Sanchez, at this point in his career, I think can more just tangle him up more than actually set an offense. I think Diego Sanchez would more benefit from being on the counter and working around Matthews instead of like trying to meet force with force, because Diego will lose that nonstop. But in that method, Matthews will thrive in that, where he really gets detoured when somebody's meeting him full force. And Sanchez doesn't have it. But Matthews is so humongous. He walks around at 200 pounds after weigh-ins, guaranteed. Guaranteed. Um, I had decision. I think I'm going to go TKO just because that's pretty much live regardless against Diego Sanchez at this point. I think it's going to be TKO round number 2. I'm going to go round number 3 once Diego's really just wearing it, just because Matthews is so big. Even if Sanchez grapples him for a while, Matthews is going to be so much weight to handle in there. It's a fade more on Diego Sanchez than it is a play on Matthews, because I'm waiting to fade him moving forward as well. But just can't put any money on Diego Sanchez. Who are you taking in this disgusting fight?
I'm going with Jake Matthews as well, but for every reason that you said, I'm only going to go with the Jake Matthews decision, because he loses that power and that cardio as the fight goes on. And then Diego Sanchez, I actually picture him by the end of round 3, even though he might have had a 10-8 in one of the rounds and lost the other round clean. By the end of round 3, he's going to be the one with more energy, still talking shit. Even though we just watched him be a human punching bag for 12 minutes, I think the last 3 minutes of the fights are going to be Diego, and I think he still looks like, what the, when the decision goes to Jake Matthews. So I think Diego is a weirdo. I think I see Jake Matthews getting some good shoveling body shots, like good digs. But other than that, I see that same tie-up that Diego's able to do. If he can make Jake Matthews isn't always known as a knockout artist. And so
Right.
I think Diego's the kind of a guy that'll trip you up. He's a weirdo. He's weird in there, but his grappling is enough to do just enough to Jake Matthews to wear him out by the 3rd round. So I do have Jake Matthews by decision, but Diego, I think he's a hard guy to get out of there. Just like you're saying, he's been knocked out for the last 4 years. I put words in your mouth, but
No, you're right there. It's got to be the fade on Diego Sanchez there. On DraftKings, you're going to end up paying $9,400, the most expensive fighter on the night. Jake Matthews against Diego Sanchez, $6,800. I'm going to go 5% on Jake Matthews, 0% on Diego Sanchez. But I think unless it's that first round KO / complete mollywhopping, which Jake Matthews can just sit on top and wait for a decision. He is known to do that. So, really gross fight. I think limited exposure here. You have other shots throughout the night to definitely make your money back on that crafty one of a fight. Then we get on into 155 pounds, the headlining preliminary bout of the night. We got Brad Riddell coming in against Alex De Silva. Riddell coming in with that city kickboxing credentials. They're bringing in the crew. We already had Shane Young on earlier in the night. Now we got Riddell coming in with an 8-1 acumen against De Silva's 21-2. De Silva only losing in the UFC to Yokolev submission, and never mind, and Brave to the decision in there, winning his last fight to Rodrigo Vargas, who's borderline UFC competition. The Astor fight team is a kickboxer, Brazilian kickboxer. He likes to keep it standing, serviceable takedown defense. On the ground, doesn't look like he's anything too great. He really just is more like a Edson Barbosa, just maybe not as powerful or as fast at 55, but in that same type of back and forth 3 and 4 punch combinations, which we absolutely love here, but not much more outside of that. His game plan is very fixed. After those first 2 minutes, you kind of see everything you get from De Silva, maybe an occasional takedown attempt in there, but not much. And on the ground, really nothing to write home about. Against Riddell's 8-1, as I was saying before, winning his 2 fights in the UFC. The Malarkey fight, not the best, because Malarkey was also a nobody off of the regional scene out there in New Zealand, Australia. But last beating Mustafayev in a split decision meant 7 months ago. That was a much craftier fight. Going back and watching that, really watching the fight IQ of Riddell there, being the striking coach for City Kickboxing. Not only did he show his striking acumen, he showed his MMA IQ, showing
Did you
great
think he
takedowns,
won
showing his
that?
grindability. What's
Rewatching
that?
it? Rewatching it, did he win?
I do think he won that. I do think that it was still a close fight. So if it would have went to Mustafayev, I would have been mad. But it was also on local shores, so it inched it that much more. But regardless of win or lose in the fight, if you go back and watch it, the reads that Riddell was making were legitimate there, and he was really stuffing a lot of that wrestling and grappling against a much better fighter. Maybe not as technical as De Silva, but much more power and much heavier on the ground. And that's why I feel like the line has definitely gotten away from Riddell here at minus 350 or minus 325 against Silva. I do think Riddell is the likely winner here. I do think it's a little expensive for him, but De Silva can't do half of what Mustafayev did, so I just don't see him winning. But I got Riddell in the decision. I think De Silva can just kind of turn it into a kickboxing pitter patter, and for that I see kind of a boring decision. Riddell will sit back and counter instead of move forward, and he'll out fight IQ you, but he won't go for the finish as well. Even in that Malarkey fight, to an extent, and that's not UFC caliber. So I got a decision here. A lot of people are betting heavy on here. As far as DraftKings, I'm going to be fairly limited on this one. What do you think you're taking here?
I'm going with Riddell as well. Decision. I love him. He's just a decision fighter to me. And he's a decision fighter I love to watch. And he's one of the kids out of New Zealand that I want to keep my eye on. I do see that he will eventually get to a point in the 155 division where I'll have to start questioning this. I can't wait for Riddell to be an underdog. I can't wait for that day. But right now, Riddell decision, and it's pretty comfortable for me to make that. You said ring IQ, and that's like the thing. He just seems to keep himself out of harm's way in a fight. And
He thinks in there and does really good reads, really good stuff in there when you go back and look. Always thinking, but that's kind of a standard we see with these city kickboxing guys, not only in Adesanya and
Hooker.
Volkanovski, Hooker, all these guys. Hooker, out of all of them, probably makes the worst reads. He adapts the least, honestly, and he's a big name. So that should tell you about some of these other guys in here. On
Hooker got
DraftKings,
a
for the
case of the
decided favorite,
cowboy.
you're paying.
He has that BMF quality where
Yeah,
Hooker wants to get
he
hit.
wants a flash.
Yeah.
Right,
Not that he
right,
wants to
right,
get
right.
hit, but he doesn't mind getting hit.
9,200 for Riddell. 9,200 for Riddell against Silva's 7,000. Even. Do you think you're going to be paying for the average 85 points of 9,200 for Riddell? He does throw a lot of output.
I actually could see myself paying. I'm gonna go heavier in the main card like I always do, and I haven't liked too many of the cards in the undercard to make me like, oh, that makes me really hype of wanting to bet the whole card. So on the ones I do, I can see myself playing Riddell heavily. I trust him. There's few guys in the UFC that just, even if Riddell goes out there and loses by a decision, I think he still gets a comfortable 65 points. His fighting style.
Right. Absolutely there. Absolutely. Oof, it's going to be tough. I feel like I'm going to back off. I'm going to be super limited on Riddell, but I'm going to have no De Silva. I feel like the night's been going a lot of that way for me, where it's super low exposure and only on one side. But I'm seeing kind of lopsided matchups. But the betting lines are stating that minus 325 is not even close, and that's for a reason in there. So definitely Abu Dhabi localish favorites may have a role to play with that. We'll see what it comes down the pipeline. But here we get into the main card, also known as the FPC, the Fight Pick Championships. For all the marbles, we're working for that mini belt. We trying to take those booty shots, just like my hero man Nunes. Been working hard, trying to come back.
Wow, look at the tits.
We still got a little bit of the season to go, and this main event or main card is quite an offering. We do know the standings.
I am not doing. I feel like I might be last place, but that's kind of more comfortable for me. It's too much pressure leading. But you know where I am in
I
first
do not
place?
believe that is so.
Since Evil Twin has joined our pickings, I have been killing the game as far as LaTB is concerned. I feel like every week I look and I'm like, whoa, I'm beating Evil Twin and Zol tonight on the damn Tapology. Every week. I don't even know when the last time I lost was. It's probably like 2 weeks ago.
The official standings right now for the Fight Pick Championships, I'm only going to give you the three podium top three. Alpha, the big pink weenie himself at 375 points. Grampy back, lurching in with 335 points. And Ricky MMA at an even 300. MMA Marks at MMA Marks, holding it down hard. Cheney only being 75 points away from that top three at 235.
Are you kidding me?
Correct. No, you're in seventh, though.
Yeah. I was like, I thought I was in way, way, way behind.
Oh, no, you're beating me by a good 2 spots here. We have a total of 17 opponents in here.
I thought you were beating me. This is bullshit.
Oh, no. It was a bad week last week, for sure, as far as Fight Pick
I
Championships.
did better
I'm
overall.
going to play
The only reason I really talk shit, I thought I did better overall on my card. That's why I talk shit to you and Evil Twin. But I thought you did better than me on the Fight Pick Championship a few weeks in a row, and I feel like this past week you did better than me on the Fight Pick Championship.
No, I
had a homeboy by I swapped
KO.
No, I swapped from Mearshart.
Good call.
I did, but I only picked decision for the other homeboy for Ratlip. I forget his name. And then the Walker KO was bullshit. That gave me DAP. That gave me multiple DAP. And no one cared because I was the only person that had Superman anywhere. But that stoppage was garbage fucking stoppage. If your corner is yelling the whole time that the hits are to the back of the head and the hits continue to go to the back of the head, we all saw that too. We all heard your corner yell it. We all saw it. I was like, whoa, that seems bullshit. And Superman Span seemed like he was winning that fight to me. And if that shit would have gone, regardless of that weird if they would have just stopped it and it was a minute, fights don't get started back after they're stopped for illegal strikes, unfortunately. But that definitely
John Jones said it the best. Cool bar fight, bro. Because that was a fucking bar fight. That shit was crazy. That was a
Johnny
crazy
Walker's garbage. I won't jump on that hype train ever.
Absolutely.
I heard people talking about like hype train's real, and I'm like, did you guys watch the same fight I watched? Because I thought he fought like garbage.
Yep. Hey, but let them steam up that line so we can bet all on opposite of that, because that's what's going to happen real soon.
What a great way to look at a glass half full.
But the main card starts out with a heater here with Akeem Duadu coming
Zoltan.
against.
I got to play Zoltan for that. Glass half full. Zoltan.
Zubaira coming in with the Zoltan Tuhugov 19-4 fighter coming off of a win, last getting a draw split decision against Lerone Murphy, beating Kevin Aguilar TKO punches 7 months ago, losing the Moicano in a split decision, beating Nover, beating Chavez in there. Tahulov coming in with a solid wrestling acumen, good striking, showed that he has power, coming out of AKA, training with being a part of that entire clan out there. Serviceable everywhere, has power, can put a good game plan to go together. Warrior here has just shown that in the third round, he can start to wear it a little bit. He can really start to wilt and let the fight get away from him. And Hirakim Duwadu is somebody who's 11-1-1, someone that I only picked Dan Henry. The only time Dan Henry has ever panned out for me was in the Akeem Duwadu fight. The 3 fights after that, so I need to learn when to get off a Henry hype train and realize that Duadu's made real changes in here. He's really worked on his takedown defense. Cardio has looked like it's gone through the roof on his 4-fight winning streak since then, beating Arnett, beating Bochniak, Hori, and Julio Arce, which I would say that Arce fight is probably his biggest claim to fame. Arce being on the Tahugov level, I think it's a very close stylistic matchup to as of now. I feel like Duwadu here is the one who chooses where he gets to keep this fight. He gets to keep it on the ground, or he has to take down the fence to be able to keep it striking, where I feel like Duwadu has a slight advantage, even though Tahugov has a little more flat out power. I feel like Duwadu sets up those kicks with his kickboxing acumen a whole lot better coming out of that champion creed. I got Duwadu decision. I feel like is going to wear it a little bit better and land a better strike, especially going on in that later round. Super close fight. I think it goes 29-28. I think Tahugov wins the first round. Duwadu comes in back and wins the next 2. And I could even see that reversed or somewhere in between. Screwy, dirty split here. But give me Duwadu as the coin flip of a fight, -110, -110, the epitome of a coin flip. Give me Duwadu here, decision.
I agree with you everywhere, and I just think this is going to be a shit decision that rolls toward Khabib's boy. We haven't seen anything about Khabib's camp. We haven't heard anything about Khabib. If it gets
Abu
too close,
Dhabi.
in Abu Dhabi, if it goes to a split, I'm gonna give it. And if I'm looking at what dude they're trying to push harder, to me, it's always gonna be one of Khabib's boys. I think Duwadu should have this here. He should be the more exciting guy. I do wonder how Duwadu will hold up if Zabara realizes that his striking isn't up to par with Duwadu's. Is he going to go into a takedown that we haven't seen him ever really fall back on heavily before, because his striking usually looks so on point? So I'm going to go with Tuhulov decision. I think this fight should be exactly where it's at. Like Tapology says, it's dead even, 110-110. I can't remember the last time I seen a fight dead even, but I kind of feel like this should be, because I could see it going either way, and I don't see either guy really getting finished. I want to say I don't see either guy getting finished, but and I also think it's fishy the amount of time that Tukugov took off in between, but that Kevin Aguilar fight is legit knockout to me. That is legit. So the rest of the guys that Duwadu's gone up against don't carry that kind of weight to me. So even though his record looks good and he's doing everything real fast and nice, I do think that Zabara could take away some of that steam, some of that power, some of that speed, and just show up better toward the end of the fight to pull out the decision. So I'm going to go with Zabara decision. But I like everything you're saying about Duwadu. I think he's totally underwatched, underrated. Like, he seems to do everything right.
Split. You're absolutely right, and I like that here LaTB is repping on the Fight Pick Championships both sides of this, because I think that this is, again, the 29-28 either fighter, and at the end of it, we're going to be like, that was a close fight, guys. Really fun one.
I actually
really
think you're smarter because, in my opinion, the Zabara is more of the pop song that everyone tends to lean toward because they know that's Khabib's boy. So I think the line should actually if it were more honest, it would be heavier Duwadu, but because everybody is always favorited Khabib, anyone that even touches Khabib, they're automatically favorited. So I think the line should be almost 2-1 Duwadu. It's like that Khabib pool is so heavy, and Duwadu kind of gotten overlooked for a really long time. People liked him when he first came out because of his look. He looked scary and menacing. But then they were like, okay, not into him. I don't know.
On DraftKings, Tuhugov 8,200 against Duwadu's 8,000 even. Essentially a coin flip on DraftKings as well. I'm going to have average Tuhugov 72 points, average 70 or 61 points for Duwadu. I think that either side of this, you're not going to be wrong. The 30 points on DraftKings for the winner is going to affect it a little bit more, but I do think that they both score around that 60 to 70 point range, regardless of the winner. Whoever wins gets 70. Whoever loses gets 40.
Yeah, could see that.
So tentative there. I don't think I'm going to have too much exposure for that decision type of a fight. And then we get into an even grosser type of a matchup here at 135 pounds. Caitlin Vieira coming in against Sarge Sajara Eubanks in here, coming in short notice, replacing the fallen out fighter of Marion Renault injury. Eubanks coming off of a big upset win against Julia Avila a week ago. She literally won a fight, got on a plane, and got in quarantine to fight again. Sarge being 6-4, coming in with that black belt acumen, really showing against that Avila fight. A lot of people thought that her gas tank was going to wear. She was not going to have the better jiu-jitsu credentials. And Eubanks was just not going to be able to keep up, and she showed easily for all 3 rounds that she was the better fighter in that Avila fight, which I would say a lot of people would heavily decide Avila over Vieira, especially after Vieira's coming off of that first loss ever, knockout loss to Aldana, who's not really a knockout type of a fighter, beating Kat Zingano, beating McMahon, Evan Smith. Vieira had all sorts of crazy hype on her, but now more human after she was humbled as of late against Aldana. Vieira, black
Didn't
belt
we
on the
break
ground
this
as
down
well.
and it got canceled? This was supposed to be
Not
on a...
this fight specifically, but Renault, it was Renault Vieira.
No, I think it was Sarge. Oh, it was Sarge Avila?
She just fought a week ago is why you're thinking.
I know,
She
I thought
just
it
fought
got
last week against
scrapped.
Avila. No, she just literally fought and won. That's why. She that's why you're like, we just talked about this. No, we
And
did not.
Vieira, though she was supposed to fight somebody else, didn't we just talk about Ketlin Vieira? I'm so like, gosh, didn't we
First,
break down this exact fight already?
we did not. We've talked about either fighter in multiple other settings, especially after Eubanks only fighting a week ago. But here I think Eubanks can do a lot of what she did the first time, or in that last. I know it's a week. I know the travel's hard, and maybe I need to fade that travel because that's one thing that what you're saying in that last fight against Mustafayev, Kevin Aguilar is the first time he ever flew over across the pond to Abu Dhabi, and he lost, but he was like, the jet lag jacked me up. Eubanks just came off of a camp, just won a fight. I'm going Vieira decision. I think it's too much. Avila was a legit opponent, even though she won. It's too hard for her to just come in and get acumented. She's not only going to have issues making weight, which we got to look out for, because if Eubanks comes in heavy, she's going to try to exceed that limit because she has every excuse in the book. I had Eubanks decision. I'm going Vieira decision. That's how turned up I am about this. This is a disgusting, disgusting fight. Big fat stay away from me. I got Vieira decision. Big favorite here, minus 175. Well, slight favorite. But I think Eubanks, without the intangibles of the 22-hour flight plus a quarantine, I'd probably pick her here. But a week ago, she was fighting another opponent. You got to put some stake into that. Give me Vieira decision. Super disgusting fight. Who are you picking?
In normal terms, I totally agree with you, but in COVID times, we're all in that same fucking quarantine. We're all in the same weird shit. If she fought and then can give her body 22 hours of forced rest on an airplane at this point, I'm like, cool. And what with these women, what we're seeing different, you brought it up how different, like women, like maybe they need to think about different things. Like maybe they need to, train for submissions more instead of trying to force knockouts, since it's so rare that they're actually going to be able to do that. And I agree, and I also think maybe women like the Angela Hill, maybe they can take more fights in a year. Maybe we don't need like as deep of a pool of women fighters that we do of men, because maybe the women can fight 5 and 6 times, especially if they're submitting, not getting the head trauma, not taking the kind of damage. Sarge, for all intents and purposes, that last fight for her, if I were her coach, she really did not take any damage in that fight. It looked like a sparring session of her and doing what she does as a grappler and just tore this homegirl down. So to me, I'm not really worried about it doing too much against Sarge. I'm not going to pick against her for this. I like her attitude. I like her coming in hungry. And I'm not a huge fan of Ketlin Vieira. So give me Sarge by decision.
On DraftKings, Vieira 8,800 against Sajara Eubanks is 7,400. I feel like the DraftKings play is Sajara Eubanks there, but as I'm saying, I'm staying away from this trash pit of a fight.
I'm going to go, I'm probably going to bet it a little because I'm a main card person. So that is me on my DraftKings.
Who are you going to play? Who are you going to play more out of there?
Eubanks.
7-4, she is the value bet there. Absolutely. Especially with an average of 79 points to Vieira's average 73. It's Eubanks or nothing as far as drafting is concerned there if you're playing aside as well. So good call on that. It is my great displeasure to have to introduce the most evil, most slimiest guest we have had on the show, returning now for a far too long. Evil Twin coming in with a disgusting facial hair. How are you? How's your breathing been since the fires have finally been extinguished over in the Portland scene?
Well, I would say it's a pleasure to be here, but you and I both know that would be lying, and I don't do that. Unlike you to most of your fans.
So
the
you
fires
admit we have fans.
What's his name? Pretty Ricky and what's the other WWF?
Your
I don't know
only
if you
fan base, Evil Twin's literally only fan base you're throwing under the bus. Good job.
Ricky's your biggest
those
fan.
guys are fans of. The
Yeah,
only
they're
reason
the
I know
only
those
Evil
two
Twin
names.
fans.
The only reason I know that is because they're the only two people that you guys can reference, because I think they're the only ones that listen.
They're some of the only 2 out of 4 for sure.
Okay,
Mom
so
and little brother are the
50%.
other one.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess that means I'm good if I'm taking half of your freaking fan base with just guest appearances.
So definitely a fun pay-per-view we have underway here with, as we were getting over that riveting last fight of the night potential stopper with Vieira versus Eubanks. Do you have any specific picks leaning in that specific bout?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with Cheney on this one. Sarge Eubanks is not only coming off of a fantastic win over the Raging Panda, but I think Vieira is a slower, more decision-based fighter than the Panda. And although I agree that doesn't favor necessarily Sarge has come out as of lately and really shown an ability to go the distance, stick to a game plan. And Vieira and Sarge is coming off of literally fighting a couple weeks back. It's going to be a good rebound.
1 week, 1 day.
Okay, we're seeing great rebounds out of people that are fighting within week spans, not just to name the one the God, I can't pronounce the damn names, but there's tons of guys and gals coming back on quick turnarounds and having nothing but success. And for that reason, like I said, I think it's not much different than the comparing Sarge to the Raging Panda. Although I had the Raging Panda, Eubanks showed that she can stick to the game plan and make it a fight to favor her. Vieira, I think, is very much so going to come out slower. I think Sarge is potentially better either way on the ground. And I do think she takes a decision, though. And for what you guys are saying, DraftKings wise, absolutely, I'm going Sarge.
So we already talked about a lot of the previous card. We only have 3 more ahead of us that we'll definitely talk about later. But is there any one specific bout earlier in the night that you feel like you have a specific grab on either way? It is a pay-per-view bout. They supposedly stacked it, but I see a lot of lopsided one or the other type of guys.
Yeah, I see a lot of favorites coming into play here. I will say that how do we go from a 14 bout free card to an 11 bout pay-per-view, and the pay-per-view itself? The showcase is definitely Adesanya, Costa, and Reyes block, but other than that, that's it.
I'm with you. I was just talking shit about it. I was like, last fight night we just had was a slayer, and this one is just a sleeper to me, and you're asking me to pay $60?
I think they're putting too much value on Adesanya Costa. Now, mind you, I prefer to watch Costa because he is in your face go, and that's what they need. But Adesanya cannot pull Connor weight nor Jones kind of weight. He doesn't have that fan base. He might be Poppy Punk in your face, but he's kind of largely disliked because he's a point style fighter, but he runs his mouth. I mean, he's a Ben Askren. He's Ben Askren.
No, he's not.
Ben Askren. Runs his mouth and wins fights. That's Adesanya.
I guess. I mean,
the
what else
fight
can you
part
do?
you have to add to it, and Ben Askren never did that.
Yeah,
He ran
Ben
his
Askren
mouth.
can't fight. Adesanya can absolutely fight.
I'm saying he'll do what it takes to win a fight.
Okay,
but he's not necessarily an exciting fighter. And by all means, I love the sport and I enjoy all of it, but I don't think he's worth his weight. Not for $60 pay-per-view alone. He's a good co-headliner, or if you stack the undercard with better ranking fighters, sure, great. But to put the sure weight of the card on him and who his opponent is bull. He doesn't carry that kind of weight.
It's because I think they probably added the belt to the block of its Reyes fight, so it makes it carry all this steam. But no offense to block of its Reyes, they don't carry any of the steam that belt had with John Jones on it. So it's like, oh, cool, you put another belt, so it's a 2-title fight, but it's not enough. It's like something's off with it.
No, it isn't. It's, especially because it's a vacated belt. It wasn't won, so although it will build its steam quicker than most average fights, the fact that it's still a vacated belt and you don't feel the anticipation of a great fight. They're gonna come out and fight hard, but it's I agree. I'm eager to see who comes out on top. I have my picks, and I think it's a pretty handed favorite, but I don't think those 2 bouts can carry a full pay-per-view. They're not worth it.
Do you, for the fights going ahead, what are your favorite of like Dominic Reyes versus Jan? What do you like right there?
As far as you're asking, who do I prefer, Dominic Reyes or Block in the co-main? Oh, I gotta go Reyes KO round 2.
Did you think he beat John Jones or not a chance?
No, I think he gave John Jones a hell of a fight. I will say that in order to beat the champ, you have to, I don't want to say embarrass, but it needs to be handedly. Any GSP did it for years, right? Guys weren't flat out steamrolling him. They were beating him on a couple count strike, little bit here and there. But if you're going to take a decision fight from the champion, you need to smoke him. You need to put him away, or you need to make it to where he doesn't acquire any strikes. It is a one-sided show. If you make it competitive, the judges tend to go with the champion. It's just Tyrone Woodley versus what is it?
Wonder
Thompson.
Boy.
It's
Yeah.
that's exactly. It's so I liked Reyes in it, but I can see why the judges went with it. I don't. It was a close fight. It could have gone either way. I was rooting for Reyes.
I was too.
I did see that you were saying, Emmanuel, earlier that there's definitely some favorites, a lot of favorites. There's a one under that I definitely have my eye on, and it is the Kamur Williams Knight fight. I just want to throw this out there. I think Knight is getting grossly undervalued. I think that's an even line because Williams has power. He puts people away. He's a first round fighter. Totally agree. But I just don't see the upside in Cammer. I can't pronounce names. But I just don't see the upside in him solely because he's coming off of his first UFC win, and it was a good one. He was able to bring it back. What was it, against Tim Elliott? No, not Tim Elliott. Gosh, why am I saying that?
That's
Who
what
did he
he
just
said
take
too.
out?
I think he likes the underdog in that fight as well.
Yeah, he took out Justin Ledet. Like, no way. Knight's going to come out steamrolling. And he decisioned Justin Ledet, and Ledet's been taken out on a couple different occasions. Both fighters are striking-based fighters, but Williams is a Muay Thai and kickboxing-based striker with clear as day punching power. I mean, I think that's a fun one, and I think the line's off on that.
It makes me want to switch it right now because that's everything E said, but I don't really know enough about William Knight. His reception keeps falling out, so he keeps falling out of the show. But I just don't like Kamur enough, so beating Justin Ledet, and I even said that didn't mean shit to me. Why would I go with him because he beat Justin Ledet?
That's exactly right. That and he's not a huge favorite. I believe the lines he's a minus 180. Well, he has one UFC fight and he beat Justin Ledet, and Ledet realistically should have been cut by now. And you have a debut fighter with everything to prove with tons of knockouts on his record, and vice versa. You have Kamer, who is prone to the stoppages as well. I think that's going to be a banger. I think that's just a fun one. And at plus 150, I think that's a great value play, as well as DraftKings. I mean, I think he's in the like 72, 75 range. I'm playing Knight quite a bit. I mean, if he hits, he's hitting big.
That's what, when I was talking shit about the prelims, that was the one fight that E said that he was excited about. He's like, this is actually a banger. No one knows these two dudes, and this is going to be worth it. This is going to make the prelims worth it.
You know why he said that? It's because I sent him my picks. Shot him over. He took a look. He liked what he saw.
Are you there, E?
I don't think he is.
I don't think he is. Let me see.
My internet is lagging incredibly bad. I have horrible connection right now. I can't even hear what you guys are saying.
Oh,
that's why I've been in and out. So keep carrying it. I'm trying to figure it out. Thank you.
I'm gonna.
You guys.
I'll send E a text.
I can go over.
Yeah.
What did you guys discuss as far as the Dawodu versus Turkmenov or Goaf or however Turkish? What'd you guys decide on that?
He actually is going to go with Dawodu by decision on that. And I have Takibkov by decision, Zabara. I'm unsure about it, and I like actually everything he said about Dawodu. I just think if it goes to a dirty split in Abu Dhabi, they're going to give it to Khabib's boy. That's the only reason.
I totally I totally agree. And Zabura is a flashy kicking based fighter. That is what he does all day. And I totally agree with you. I'm going Zabura with by decision. I think this primarily plays out as a kickboxing taekwondo bout. But I think Dawood is really going to try to force the grappling and the clinch work, and but for the same reasons, I think you go Abu Dhabi. He's got the home field advantage, and I think that goes to decision as well. Yeah, I totally agree. So the one you passed up though was Kaya France versus Brandon Royvella. What do you got as far as predictions based on that
I
one?
have nothing yet. Tell me what you think. Right now, I would go Kakara Ferentz decision just because of the camp he comes from, the competition that he's gone against. But I don't dislike Brandon Royale anywhere, and I think the Tim Elliott submission is next level in that weight class. And Kakara France has never shown up for me. So I don't really have any picks yet. I usually let E break down his picks and then kind of go through it.
Okay, so I I'm torn on this bout because Brandon Royval absolutely with the Tim Elliott submission proved. I will say that Tim is susceptible to submission and he fades really bad um, in after the first round. Kaya France, though, I agree. He shows up. He shows up and he has a couple flashy kicks, and then he lets the opponent dictate the bout. Do I think though Kaya France is going to allow Royval to operate his submission game? Not necessarily. Also, what's crazy is this card is stacked with a what is that the Kickbox Academy at Auckland. I mean, it is like five. I think five guys out of
Four.
there. They're really four. Okay, they're really stacking this card, and they're just basing it around that camp and that group of guys. The other thing you got to be wary of is once a couple of those guys start losing, look at the line because losing is contagious, just like a yawn, just like ugly, just like all these different things. A couple of guys start losing and these guys lose motivation or start trying to force things that they shouldn't be forcing and trying to redeem their themselves, their teammates, their friends, and it just goes haywire from there. I don't like seeing a bunch of people from the same camp or from the same family going on the same card because they're putting too much pressure. If I get anxious and I'm sitting at home and I don't even know these guys, what is his teammate doing while he's watching him on the big screen and he sees his boy get laid out? He's gonna come out and try to get redemption.
I know that's why I always think it's like has to be like all one camp or no one camp. Like it started with the Pettis boys when they would fight on the same night that I'm like, we either have to go both Pettis boys or no Pettis boys because once you watch your buddy just get flanked, it's in your head you're gonna lose too. But if you watch your buddy just knock someone out, you're now have that momentum ahead of you. So I think it's always a good thing to stay with when people are like, do we go all AKA, no AKA, shit. So that's where it's like all city kickboxing, no city kickboxing. I'm gonna reset it.
Right,
Don't
but
say
even
your thought. Hold on. I'm just gonna reset my internet just to see if I can get you guys in because sometimes I notice when E was the one that started the room, he might be the. Hold on.
but
Sometimes I
yeah,
forget his
I
video
mean
back. Yay! I knew I would. A weird thing that happens on Discord because he is the like commander of LaTB, so he was the first one in the room. So when he does it and changes his source from phone to computer, he won't come up ever until I get out of the room because then it gives it to me. It's some weird computer thing.
oh,
So welcome back, E.
whatever. As long as it's not Twitch, I don't care.
Definitely trying to miss that money, but technical difficulties. We're punching around them. It sounds like you guys are taking Kai Car France. Both of you are on France here.
I have a car friend's
I got him by
decision.
decision. Yeah, same.
So this is where I'm going to go against the grain and pick some Brandon Royval, same way I picked him against your boy, Timmy Boy Elliott. It was more of a fade on Elliott as much as Royval being very dynamic with those submissions. I don't like the travel for Royval here, but I do feel like Kakara France gets himself into really hairy positions on the ground. He wrestles more out of any of the Kitty City kickboxing boys, and he's arguably won and lost really close fights, and it's usually that grappling that gets him in trouble. And I feel like Royval is reckless enough with his strikes to just kind of crash into the pocket there, and Kaikar France is more than happy to take him down. But I think Royval's really dangerous off of his back. And I got a submission round number 3. Brandon, Royval, give me another underdog for that tonight. That's what I'm picking on DraftKings. It's going to be an interesting matchup with Kai Kara France being 8,900 against Royval 7,300. Do you think that's valued for Kai Kara France? Do you think you're going to be able to afford him and he'll score that amount of points for you guys?
No, DraftKings wise, I'm staying away from Kaikar France. He's not a great point scorer, and I mean, even with the win, he's not averaging that the money worth the value there. Just stay away from me, DK line wise.
Agree on DK. I'll probably play Royval on 1 or 2 cards and stay away from. I mean, I might play Kakara France on 1 just because I usually do the main cards with the captain. But yeah, Kakara France not worth a lot of points.
I agree. It's Royval or nothing there. Kaikar France too much of a decision fighter to really be worth anywhere close to 9,000 on DraftKings for whatever that's worth. But then we get into the co-main event, arguably a headliner in itself at 205 pounds.
I
yes.
know you told me. I just took a chug into the microphone, and I was like, oh no, I hope they didn't hear that, because E told me that he hates chugs in microphone when people drink. But I also know about E that he hates stickers. Has he hated stickers forever? Do you hate stickers?
Yes, that is a solid yes. I have small children, and I will tell you, they have caught a boot to the chest. They know, mom knows, everybody knows. Don't approach dad with stickers unless you're trying to get stiff armed like I'm in the NFL. I just can't stand them. I agree. Something about orifices, mouths, chewing, anything at all that has to do with the mouth area, teeth, all that. I can't stand on other people. Or masticating, I can't stand listening to somebody masticate, chew food, like the person across the room that you just hear just like, oh God, it turns my stomach.
It's what I felt like growing up.
Oh, I've been overseas, like Emmanuel, and I won't get too much into it. I'm a combat veteran. I've seen my fair share of carnage. I'll take that any day instead of listening to somebody chew out loud. Oh, I can't stand it. I've seen body parts off of people. I can't stand people chewing with their mouths open, or let alone hear them.
No, it's funny you should say that. I did in past life. I was in physical therapy for a while, and I had to work around old people, and part of my thing was wound care, and so I would have to clean out gangrene and stuff all the way to people's bones and like cut away flesh so it was healing flesh. That didn't gross me out nearly as much as when I had to help the respiratory therapist suck out somebody's lungs. I was like, I can't do this. Like I would have to take half the day off after it. I was like, my stomach's not settling. Things are not right. But
yeah, say mucus is up there, but definitely vomit and anything around the mouth.
Remember dealing with people with trach stuff?
Trach. Oh, I would rather deal
any
with vomit
trach stuff
over
is the
trach.
worst.
I would rather deal with actual upheaval from your stomach over snot and shit from your trach and lungs. Like there's something about that. Like
any trach shit is gnarly.
Yeah. So I'm glad I no longer do that kind of work, because Emmanuel and I did do some of that work. But then, like I said, joined the service and I saw some pretty gnarly stuff. Nothing in country would turn me away. If a dude puked around me, I'd be like, get away from me. You're disgusting.
The stickers, after E pointed it out to me, I never really liked stickers my whole life, but actually when he verbalized like peel off a sticker and look at the back of it, and when you can see what's on a fucking sticker and you know what your eyes
So
can't see,
disgusted.
then
You're making my mouth water.
I know,
my
you're
mouth
making
water.
me sick
no,
too.
but
I don't know why you're describing this. We're not here for this.
It's a thing I get. It's a thing. It's one of those weird phobias that I'm like,
Repulsive.
what a brilliant phobia that nobody talks about. Stickers are disgusting.
Just
not a phobia.
when you do that, but when you peel it off and you look at it and it's oily and there's a big black hair and there's
Hairs.
lint and fuzz, and then they stick them on something else and it's
On their
just
cheek,
curling
on
and
their-
it just
And
the
kids
greasy, nasty,
just
oily
passing
skin.
it around to kid to kid to kid to kid to kid.
Yep. That's exactly when I started hating them.
Okay.
They're like,
God,
here, you can borrow it. And they stuck it on my face and I was like,
why are we still discussing this? We're talking fight. Oh, God, I'd rather watch Anderson Silva break his leg again.
So ASMR,
all day.
that shit where people like eat and
All
like breathe
day.
into the microphone.
Stop.
Isn't
Are
that
we
the
talking
worst?
fights? Stop. Stop it.
ASMR.
Yeah, you're just doing it to egg it on.
So, the co-main event of the evening, pay-per-view in line, 205 pounds. Dominic Reyes coming in against Jan Blachowicz, 26-8. Blachowicz coming in with a 3-fight winning streak, last losing only to Thiago Santos, TKO punches, but having a huge underdog win as of late against Corey Anderson. I mean, Jan Blachowicz coming in with a great game plan, 37 years old, good uppercuts, solid takedown defense on the ground, a black belt, but shown really good go front head choke series, good arm triangles. Blachowicz really got his gas tank in control compared to what it used to be when he initially came in the UFC. He really tightened up a lot of those gas tank issues. This is going to be a 5-rounder, and for Dominic Reyes, this arguably is a title defense. A lot of people thought he beat Jones. Statistically, he outstruck Jones in a 5-rounder there.
And knocked him
And it's
down.
one of those, if you don't beat the champs, and knocked him down. If you don't beat the champ, you didn't win, whatever that saying is. But Dominic Reyes should essentially be the champ here. Though the minus 260, it seems like it's a little bit of a steep of a favorite. I feel like Jan Blachowicz has a lot of potential avenues here, not only on the ground, which Reyes is not a ground fighter at all. He really likes to kickbox a whole lot more. But Jan Blachowicz is really efficient with his grappling. He only shoots about 2 takedowns a fight, but he's over 80%, I believe, on his actual takedown attempts. So once he's on the ground, Jan Blachowicz has a lot of control there as well. And super sneaky, where I think Reyes is just a kickboxer. He has good takedown defense and is one of the only people to ever limit John Jones to only 2 of 9 takedowns. But there's a lot of different entries, a lot of different sweeps, and even some of that Jan Blachowicz judoka to come through here. So I think this is just a much closer fight than the line has it at minus 260. I am siding with Reyes' decision here, but I know Cheney's a big fan of Jan Blachowicz, and I could see myself putting money on Jan's side just because the line is super off to me. Jan Blachowicz needs a little bit more credit here. What do you think you guys are going with in this Kona main event 5-round in the 35-foot ring cage?
When did John Jones? I never saw John Jones shoot on anyone really before, from the DC match, the first DC match, all the way through until he shot on Reyes when he was in deep trouble. Otherwise, I didn't see John Jones even try to shoot any time in between for years. It's like John Jones seems to only shoot when he's in trouble. I can't recall anybody else ever trying to shoot on Dominic Reyes. Has he gone against a ton of ground fighters? That actually is a worrisome thing to me that you brought it up, because Jan does have a really sneaky ground game.
Not really. Not really. I mean, Chris Weidman, but it's the ghost of Chris Weidman. I mean, yeah, does it? That's the best wrestler you've seen, but everyone else, as of late, Cannonier, OSP, and Ozdemir, not really wrestlers, really just other kickboxers in there.
I have Dominic Reyes by decision, but I could definitely see myself I didn't notice him getting too worn down in the John Jones fight. I thought he still looked good in round 4 and 5, which that would be where I see Jan sneaking something in. Jan also isn't as tall as John Jones to get some kind of neck leverage on any kind of standing choke that he could jump down on in between on a guy like Reyes. So I kind of feel safe with Dominic Reyes here. I just think he covers all of Jan's bases. But I think Jan is equally as dangerous of a guy to John Jones' title as Dominic Reyes, and that's why John Jones left. His next fight was Jan Blachowicz, and I think he sees an easier fight in the heavyweight than Jan. It had nothing to do with the rematch with Dominic Reyes. So I think both guys beat John Jones, in my opinion. But Dominic will... should stay on his feet with Jan enough and is tall enough to keep his neck safe, and then can kickbox him, get some good body shots in, good leg kicks. He looked good in the striking match with John to me. So I think he should do enough to get the belt.
So just a quick reiteration. I think we all agree Dominic Reyes is likely to take this. I'll disagree and say that Dominic Reyes' takedown defense is fantastic. John Jones' takedowns, he has managed to take any and everybody down. Let's not forget he was able to take down DC on multiple occasions, which nobody does, and he was only able to take down Dominic Reyes 2 times. Blachowicz has a football-style takedown, which Reyes will be anticipating, and so he'll force him up. That's why I'm going with Reyes round 2 TKO. KO, TKO.
Force him standing. And then
this is a 5-rounder. This is a 5-rounder. Does that play any effect at all? For you, it doesn't, because you're in 2 TKO. We both got decisions, so could be a lot of points at 9,000 even for Reyes against Blachowicz 7,200. I think you can have both sides of this. I don't know if I see a stack necessarily. They both have a good amount of output. Reyes having a really, I think, like over 170 strikes landed in his last fight, 5-rounder versus Jones. So, know they can put out the volume. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to stack this one. I think that one's on for the net. The stack is more of an option for the next one for me. What do you guys think you're doing on DraftKings as far as these odds are?
You were flat out wrong. Reyes, every card, everywhere you go. Reyes wins by TKO stoppage in the first or second round. Reyes, you just said, puts up 175 strikes in 5 rounds. How do you lose on DraftKings at 9,000? How do you lose on DraftKings at 9,000 points?
Only a knockout or a quick sub, which I don't see a quick sub happening for
I agree with that.
Reyes. He's so strong and so tall that usually the guys that Jan sneaks off those standing anything with are like guys that he can get one over on. But striking wise, I even think Reyes has the distance here. So everywhere Jan's really dangerous, I think Reyes can keep him at that extra foot of distance to sneak in on him and pick his shots where he needs to. Gosh, I love Jan Blachowicz. I just think he's at the tail end where Reyes is in the peak of his fucking career. We're just seeing this guy begin. I think Dominic Reyes, he's like one of the first super athletes we've seen in the UFC, and see what a guy can take with this much skill set and how quickly he can manage with it. Like, I don't know. I think Dominic Reyes is a next level dude.
Hey, he was LaTB standout of the year for some reason, right? At some point in time in there.
He was your hype train. Oh, I keep hitting the bottom of this. He was your hype train to get a part of.
So at DraftKings wise, I think he's worth his weight in gold. I like to stack all my DraftKings cards with a minimum of at least one of the 2 main rounds, because when are you going to have an opportunity to, if it goes to decision, you're maximizing points, but typically main events tend to get stopped either way. So if you can get the right guy, you're money ahead on points unless they are the most expensive person on the card. But typically main events you can get them at a budget, and I just don't know why people don't stack main event bouts.
I'm changing my opinion of this card just now. I totally agree with you with the stacking with the 5 rounds, especially if we get the opportunity at 2. We just talked about that, and I felt like totally like pacified, like, okay, that was the main event and I'm good, the show's over. Holy shit, there's still Costa versus Adesanya to break down, so this is okay. Just those 2 fights being 5-rounders, they can be a little heavier. And this country is
They're great fights.
yeah, and there's somebody from every big country on this card, that hasn't been represented in a while. So I do see like a whole bunch of people tuning in that maybe normally wouldn't have to the Vegas cards, just because they're country backers.
At 185 pounds, as you're saying, the main event, why we're all here to watch the first O has got to go from one of these fighters. The second time ever we've only ever had two undefeated fighters going for that strap at 185 pounds. Israel Adesanya coming in against Paulo Costa. The 13-0 Costas ran through Johnny Hendricks off of the steroid suspension, Alualu Bamboje, Uriah Hall, Yoel Romero in a decision a year ago. We're getting Ricky Martin on steroids coming forward with a high pressure style coming out of that Albarazin camp with Henry Cejudo. Really made changes and really shown a great left hook with tons of pressure and just really the epitome of a swarm fighter. Costa gets in your face, puts you on the cage, and cuts it off. That's what he likes to do. And I feel like the closest fight that you can kind of mimic out of his short opponents he's had as of late is Uriah Hall to Adesanya. And the jab for jab sequencing they got in there was really great, but it really just showed what Costa does. And Costa, if he starts to lose an exchange, instead of him, he will adapt, but he also will move in and just eat the shot harder, expecting to land a harder shot. And he does a lot of the time land that harder shot. So he really relies on his chin and just his forward roll pressure to really stifle a lot of game plans. And it's done it. But now he's fighting a UFC championship belt holder with ridiculous credentials here. Israel Adesanya has also had a crafty career now, not losing any fights, coming off the Kelvin Gastelum fight of the year, beating Whitaker, beating Yoel Romero as well, Anderson Silva, Derek Brunson, finishing a lot of these guys, but doing it in a much more finesseful type of way. He said it on the embeddeds as well. It's going to be a matador versus a bull in there. He's going to be the bull. I'm going to be the matador. And I see a counter striker coming in against a pressure fighter. And if you want to look for those type of stylistic matchups, look at Chris Lieben, Anderson Silva. Look at some of these guys that just move ultra forward against the guy who steps to the side and picks you apart with shots. I do think that the game plan for Costa has looked really good as of late against his opponents. And if he does the Henry Cejudo game plan against Dominic Cruz, this is a completely different fight. And that's because that camp realized we got somebody with legs that moves nonstop. What do we got to do? Kick his legs out. And Costa goes well to the body and the legs if he chooses to. It's just whether that's the official game plan. And I feel like that's the biggest intangible. If it stays the basic style moving forward for Costa and Adesanya counter-striking, I see a TKO round number 4 for Adesanya because I think Costa is going to accentuate a lot of those strikes that don't usually knock out a lot of fighters, but I think it's going to be not only the gas tank, but it'll be a lot like Ronda Rousey, Holly Holm, where Ronda's just chugging forward expecting to land that big shot, and Holly Holm's like, oh, let me step to the side and land a head kick, and we'll see how well your chin does here. But I do have Israel Adesanya TKO round number 4. Stylistically, this is so much fun because it's meant for fireworks. I don't see how we go to decision. Even if we go to decision, this is when we're going to be able to walk back on tape and just pick little beautiful tidbits from on both sides. This is a really, really fun matchup. Watch the left hook for Costa because that's notoriously been Adesanya's only weakness. The only time he's ever been knocked out. If we see it, Costa sees it. But I think he sets up that left hook again with going to the body and legs. If not, Adesanya is the matador. Amazing matchup. What do you guys think goes on in this one? Muted.
I put it quietly because the train was going by, so it didn't. Has Abu Dhabi always been the 35-foot cage?
Yes.
Okay, I think the 35-foot cage definitely behooves Adesanya more here, being able to use his footwork to get out of the way of a big, huge, raging bull Costa. Costa looked great to me against Yoel old ass Romero. So great. That was his best fight, that he looked good against the old ass man that didn't do everything that we love about Yoel. He never even tried to wrestle. He just stood in there and took a bunch of shots to maybe land one of his own. Israel Adesanya is going to move out of the way the whole entire time. And if he picked apart Bobby Knuckles kind of in that way, I think I see him kind of doing a similar thing to Paulo Costa. The one thing I don't even see, even after the Whitaker knockout, I don't see Israel as a knockout artist, but when a guy comes forward with that kind of pressure, he will catch you and knock you out. I do think he's a guy that has precision, but he uses your power coming in to set up his own shots. So I would normally see him winning by decision here, but I think with the amount of, like you were saying, matador, raging bull kind of thing, I see him catching Costa and with that forward pressure and eventually being able to knock him out. So I like a late finish if I'm going to have one, round 4 or 5 for Israel Adesanya. And I think Costa's a shot in the pan that looks better. Like he's kind of one of these guys that made his name off, everyone's like, oh, Yoel Romero, after Yoel was in 2 fights with Bobby Knuckles, like 2 wars at the end of his career. And I don't even take that highlight for Israel. Like his wins against Gastelum and Robert Whitaker were better to me than fighting Yoel Romero. So Costa, to me, his best win still old Yoel. And I love Yoel, but he's slow as hell. Yoel. That's the opposite of Israel. Go, Israel. Weird.
So, right. So I totally agree with the thought process that you guys are going with. And by all means, what is concerning is the fact that the longest fight Costa has had is Yoel Romero in a 3-round fight where he did outstrike him and push him. What I did like there was, like said by Emmanuel, is he bites down on his mouthpiece and he expects to take a shot to give a shot, and he proved that, and he took big shots, not huge, but took big shots from Yoel. So he hasn't tasted the knockout defeat. He has yet to taste the loss. And Adesanya is going to do exactly what you guys are talking about. He's going to dance around the cage. He's going to circle. He's going to do everything he can. But by all means, Costa knows that this is his shot, and he's going for broke. I believe, and I'm going to go against the grain, I'm going Paulo Costa, round 2, KO. I think he does what he can in that time span. If it goes past the second round, it goes to Adesanya via TKO decision all day. I think Paulo Costa can make it happen because the kind of power he does possess is one shot put you down, and he strings together combos. He effectively attacks the legs and the body. And don't get me wrong, Adesanya is told his game plan. He's going to be the matador. He's going to do all these different things. And Costa knows that. Expect Costa to eat 3-4 shots to land that hook, whether it be the left or the right, set it up with a body shot, whatever. But I think Costa comes out guns a-blazing because realistically, I think everybody knows as well as Costa that is his best opportunity at winning this fight. First 2 rounds.
Yeah, you're not
and
even
I'm
going to, if you're his
I
coach,
think,
yeah, you're not going to try to tell him to go for 25 minutes. You're going to be like, go out
not
there.
not a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to go up against a decision fighter, a point-based decision fighter for 5 rounds. You're crazy.
And we've seen
I think
Israel
he
get
can do
knocked
it.
down, right? We've seen him get knocked down just recently.
We've seen him get knocked down.
Kelvin?
Yep,
Who
Gastelum knocked him down.
Yeah. Kelvin hits,
Yeah,
or
but Kelvin has good boxing, good tight boxing with Adesanya, or not Adesanya. Costa doesn't have. He has big looping power punches. He's still sneakily fast for as big as he is, but he doesn't have the traditional boxing that was used to put down Adesanya. But what Emmanuel said, he's correct. Paulo Costa will allow you to tee off on him to try to counter. I wouldn't even say try to counter. He's going to eat punches to steamroll to be able to land a punch. And in that sequence is where I believe Paulo Costa can do it. I believe that he can eat enough punches because of the lack of power. Sure, he has precision. He'll get touched. And that's why I think if it goes later, I think Adesanya could absolutely finish him, but it'll be after Costa being chipped at. I think in those first 2 rounds, his chin holds up, and if he connects with anything in between one of those rushes, I think Paulo Costa can take it away from him.
I could totally see that happening. I feel like if it finishes early, it's 100% Paulo Costa finishing in the first 2 rounds, and anything that goes after those first 10 minutes, it's Israel's fight to lose. Yeah, I agree.
And that's what I'm basing it on. So with
yeah.
that,
Go ahead. Are you frozen? Is everybody frozen? Am I the only one here?
yeah,
Let me try to restart.
we can see you.
It's going back and forth with that frozen face. She'll get on. I'm sure it's been IT's been a biatch today, but either way,
We always
I
like
think
to say fuck Bill Gates at the end of the show.
so. I just was about to say I think the co-main event is more stackable as far as playing two guys in one lineup with Jan Blachowicz versus Dominic Reyes. Then I see Adesanya. If we're seeing it's Costa early finish or Adesanya mid finish, we're kind of seeing more of a finish in this main event than we are seeing in the co-main event. So therefore, I feel like the more strikes acumented, and then out of that, Jan Blachowicz just seems like the most value out of all of the guys. 8,500 for Adesanya on DraftKings against Costa 7,700. How much do you think playing of either side of this?
I'm gonna really quick, guys. I'm gonna say I'm really not playing either. If any, I'm gonna lean towards Adesanya because he has the opportunity to finish it and finish it in later rounds. I'm really staying away from both of them. I go with Paulo Costa as well, but I'm staying away from that because it really that fight is a coin flip. Um, so I'll give you that. But guys, I have to head out. I appreciate the time. I'm glad I could help fill in some of the block with Emmanuel's technical difficulties and whatnot. So you guys, best
Thank
of
you.
luck over the weekend, and I'll be eager to send out my picks. I waited last week till literally the day of because every time I send out my picks, 3 or 4 fights change. I waited till the last minute, nothing freaking changed.
Nothing.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, and we have a
All right,
logo
Nick.
too. Once we are changing the LaTB name, and we have a logo for you if you're into that sort of thing that we'll be sending in your direction. If you hate it, you can dump it, but otherwise it'll say Evil Twin. It'll kind of look like Emmanuel's Zoltanite logo, except it'll have this. It'll say Evil
Except a
Twin.
lot weaker.
I'm a
lot weaker.
family man. I'm a family man. I can't be having that. Do want to do this one?
The shocker. Okay.
No. All right, guys, take it
Loving
easy. You guys
hands.
have a good night. Take it easy, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Later. So, Evil Twin always having those disgusting picks in there. I like that he made a good argument for Paulo Costa, but I feel like he didn't backtrack it, but he's kind of saying the same thing we are. Costa's live for that knockout, but he only gets it when he's eating shots. He comes in and knocks out Adesanya when he's eating a 2-punch combination. So it's more of a puncher's chance where we all see more of the fight IQ, the actual trap setting, the actual better all around fighter being Adesanya, other than that flat out 1-punch power. But great co-main event.
I liked what he was saying because I do agree. We've seen Israel get knocked down. We know Paulo has those punches, but I lean so much closer to what you're saying, not because I've been an Israel fan from the beginning. He's my hype train. It's funny we're watching both our hype trains on the same fight. Yours was Dominic and mine was Israel of 2018.
True.
If you're an old school LaTB fan. And now we're watching both our dudes fight for one retaining their belt and one to get their belt.
Yeah.
So
Truth.
I'm like, that beyond to shit. So I'm just saying. So one thing with the Israel fight is, for me, it wasn't Robert Whittaker that got knocked out by Israel's power. It was Robert Whittaker coming forward that got knocked out by Israel's power. When I rewatch, I don't do tape study, but I did rewatch that fight and rewatched a couple of other Israel. Just watching him grow in this sport, watching him from Gastelum to Kelvin, and watching how much better he got, and then knowing what I know about Yoel and watching his deterioration and then watching Costa come up, I'm like, if Costa comes in with twice the amount of force and power that Whittaker had, he's going to get knocked out 2 times as fast. Because
Absolutely.
if you even watch any of that in slow motion, Israel's moving out of the way. Like, Bobby barely landed shit on him. Like, he got a shot in, but most of it, Israel's moving out of the way. So I just feel like I can't imagine Paulo Costa being faster than Bobby Knuckles. And that's where I have my, like, I see the power, I see the knockout, I see the beauty of everything Paulo Costa, but still, Bobby Knuckles is a better fighter to me than Paulo Costa. He's not as big, he's not as powerful, but he's a better, well-rounded fighter everywhere. So I just feel like once Israel got past that danger, this isn't as threatening. This is more like a Yoel Romero fight to me.
Definitely a fun stylistic matchup. Definitely the last 2, if not 3, because I really like that Royval Kai Car France. I know I'm the only one going the opposite way there,
I could
but
switch
hey,
on that. I could switch on
your
that.
boy made money against Elliott. People are like, Elliott's got that all day. Mm-hmm.
I could see myself switching the Brandon Royval. I could see myself switching to the Wadu. Those are my 2, like, I did switch. I might have switched to something. You fell off during the thing, but Evil Twin reiterated something that you were saying in the fight with Knight versus whatever his face is.
I heard a little bit of that, and he was on the Knight side from what I understood
Yeah, it made
as well.
me switch. It made me like, you're right. Why am I going with somebody? I hate Justin Ledet. Why would I pick somebody because of a win against Justin Ledet?
Who decisioned Ledet? That's exactly it.
What?
Exactly.
Like, that
it's
was
like
a broken thought process in my head. So, yeah, that was good too. And it sucked that there was a couple of technical difficulties, but it worked out overall.
It is what it is. Definitely. That Florida internet is sometimes a fickle beast.
I know, it's
a fickle
shitty
mistress.
that yours, because we have totally different services, and I literally,
Yeah,
right when we came on today, I said, oh, I haven't had internet since last Friday. I just got my internet fixed. We should be all good to go. We've been good the whole time. My green light's been lit. Everything's been good. Yours, AT&T, which I just called you. Give me that AT&T referral code because I'm over Comcast. And then your internet shit. I'm like, are they in cahoots?
In the middle, it just starts lagging, and it's being fickle right now. So definitely get out while we're ahead here. You know where to be following us at 11 cards down, 11 fights down. We got a hell of a pay-per-view on the way. You know we're going to be watching. You know we're going to be at the Fights of the Round Table afterwards, breaking down all of the madness. It is going to be actually in one of the intangibles we didn't throw out there. We usually do midday card, I believe, here in the United States. Over in Abu Dhabi, I believe it's in the afternoon. So
It's midday, but it starts at 10 because all pay-per-views always start at 10 for us. So it can't be too midday. It probably starts at 7 is my guess, 6:30, 7 o'clock. Because all the pay-per-views for America always start at the same time. So they're probably having
yeah, you're right. It does start at 10.
Yeah, so they're probably having
2
one of those,
a.m. nights.
Yep, that's what I was about to say. They're having one of those AMers where they have to black out their windows and train and stay on their own schedule.
So another fun intangible to try to quantify in there overall. But a hell of a fight card. We got many more fights on the way. The week's rolling on the UFC. And not only that, Bellator, Cage Warriors, Brave, One. I mean, the world's coming back. Fights everywhere all week. It's not just going to be UFC, but that's the only thing we watch.
When
so
are we going to be allowed to go to fights again?
It.
When are we going to be allowed to go to fights again?
I'm watching this tape study now sometimes, and I'm like, listen to that crowd. Oh, if they only knew.
You're like, you're watching tape studies and you're like, oh, listen to that crowd. Oh, wait, that noise is all subbed in because of new NFL football. Have you watched any of the NFL football?
It's so weird. I did watch some.
It's so embarrassing.
Weird.
It's like the crowd noise doesn't even make sense with the actions that are happening on the field. It's just like,
am I watching Full House here? What's going on?
That's what it feels like. It's a laugh track. Yeah. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
It's like some big play that it's like 1st and 10 going for this touchdown, but the crowd noise is always, it doesn't change. It's never higher or lower. So, yeah, all the other sports suck. They're all fixed. I've been trying to tell you guys forever with conspiracies. The only sport that isn't fixed is UFC, and you should be tuning in. That's it. I love you guys. Be safe out there.
Let me